Hello and welcome to Pocket Wellbeing Friend, the podcast that fits in your pocket and walks beside you through the mess, the magic and the everyday moments of life. I'm Dan, and today we're having a quiet conversation about something that many of us carry silently, that voice in your head. You know, the one that says, you should have done better. Why are you even like this? It's that voice that can sound harsh, sharp, or even sometimes cruel, and yet it's often the voice we live with the most, day in, day out, and we don't question it. We just assume it's telling the truth. Well, today's episode is about something powerful, but often misunderstood: self-compassion. Not as a fluffy type of self-help idea or as a vague Instagram quote, but as a real practical emotional skill that can transform how we relate to ourselves and how we cope in hard times. And most importantly, we'll try and answer the question, why does self-compassion feel so hard while self-criticism feels so automatic? This isn't about pretending to love yourself, though. It's about treating yourself like a human, like someone who's doing their best, even when they're struggling. So, take a breath, let your shoulders drop, get a cup of tea. Let's begin. Let's start with this. Self-criticism is learned. You weren't born thinking you weren't good enough. You certainly didn't pop into the world worried about your productivity or performance, and when you were learning to walk, you didn't stop and shame yourself when you tumbled and made a mistake. But somehow, along the way, maybe through school or family or things you've picked up in general, you were taught that being hard on yourself keeps you real, or criticism means self-awareness, kindness is weakness, and you need to be tough on yourself to get better. Does that sound familiar? This internal voice often grows out of early experiences. Maybe you had people who cared for you who were strict, teachers who demanded perfection, or friends who mocked mistakes. Now, sometimes it doesn't even take words, does it? The non-verbal disapproval, things like raising an eyebrow or a silent sigh, is enough. These things teach us that approval is conditional, that to be good, we must be hard on ourselves. But for many people, self-criticism becomes a strategy for success. That if I beat myself up first, no one else can mindset. And in some ways that works. Until it doesn't. Because here's the truth. Self-criticism might drive short-term performance, but over time, it wears you down. Your self-worth gets worn down, drains your motivation, and your anxiety is massively amplified. It's like trying to grow a flower by yelling at it. Why would you do that? So, why do we stick with it? Well, because it feels safe, and it feels familiar, and controlled, and sometimes because we've never seen a different way. Now, the brain has a built-in negativity bias. It pays more attention to what's wrong more frequently. It pays attention to threats and errors and imperfections because, from an evolutionary standpoint, that's how we've survived. That's how you might replay one awkward thing you said at lunch 20 times because you forget the 3 compliments you received. You just think of the awkward things. It's not that you're broken. It's that your brain is wired to protect you. The problem is that protection becomes punishment when that voice inside your head turns critical by default. Here's a little gentle truth. Sometimes the voice in your head isn't even yours. It's an echo of someone else, a parent or a teacher, maybe a boss. And when you hear you're not enough inside your own mind, you might actually be hearing an old tape like that never got switched off. But now, You get to choose what plays. Ask yourself, whose voice does my inner critic sound like? Is it helping me or is it hurting me? And what would I say to a friend if they were hearing this inner voice? Now, you're already starting to shift just by asking one of these questions. I know that when I'm reading sometimes, the voice in my head doesn't sound like my voice, it's the voice I'm reading. There are so many different voices. Okay, so if you've ever cringed at the word self-compassion, you're not alone. For a lot of people, it feels soft and fluffy and indulgent, like something you might get when all the work is done. But let me be clear. Self-compassion is not self-pity. It's not about wallowing or letting yourself off the hook. It's not an excuse or weakness. It's a strength that takes practice, courage, and emotional maturity. And most importantly, self-compassion is not the opposite of accountability. It's actually the foundation for it. That's a big statement, isn't it? Self-compassion is not the opposite of accountability. If you've spent years or decades motivating yourself through fear, shame, or pressure, self-compassion can feel weird, maybe even false, like you're letting yourself off too easily. But that's because your system is used to adrenaline and cortisol, not oxytocin and calm. The first time you speak kindly to yourself, your brain might go, whoa, wait, is that allowed? Well, the answer is yes, it is allowed. And actually, it's really effective. Here's something backed by a bit of research. People who practice self-compassion are more resilient, more persistent, and less likely to burn out. Why? Because they're not operating in a constant state of fear. When you know you won't mentally beat yourself up for trying and failing, you're actually more willing to take healthy risks, ask for help, or try again. You become safer to yourself, and that creates space for growth. Next time you catch yourself thinking something harsh, pause and ask, would I say this to someone I love? If not, what would I say to them instead? And can I try offering that love to myself, even if it feels awkward? You don't have to fully believe it at first. Just try it on like a new self-compassion jacket. That voice will grow with practice. Here's something no one tells you about self-compassion though. It can feel really overwhelming at first. Not relaxing or easy or soft and lovely. It can actually feel emotional and uncomfortable, even painful. Because when you've spent years surviving with an inner voice that's harsh or dismissive, kindness can feel like a threat. Your nervous system doesn't know what to do with it. Not because it's bad, but because it's new. If you've internalized criticism as a form of safety, you stay alert, and to avoid shame then switch into self-compassion, well, that's going to stir things up. You might feel a lump in your throat. Tears come out of nowhere. Well, all those things are normal. Because for many people, self-compassion doesn't just feel foreign, it feels undeserved. But here is the thing. You don't have to feel worthy to begin treating yourself with care. The feeling will catch up later. So compassion isn't about fixing how you feel. It's about being with yourself when feelings are hard. Let me remind you, you don't have to solve your sadness to deserve care. You don't have to justify your burnout to be allowed to rest. You don't have to explain your fear to be held by your own kindness. This is self-compassion. It's presence, not performance. It's one thing to talk about self-compassion when things are calm. It's another thing entirely to practice it when things are spiraling, overwhelming, or even just completely fried. That's where it matters the most. So what about some practical self-compassion tools to use in the real world, in the moment, ones that you can actually use when your nervous system is completely flooded, your thoughts are racing, or your mood is low? Well, you can name the moment. You can claim your right to care. Shift your voice. You can use a soothing touch. Place your hand on your heart. Hold your own hand or use a soft object. You can give yourself a micro gesture of kindness. Now, none of these solve the problem, but they change the way you face it, and that changes everything. Now, you've made it this far into the episode, and if you've come this far, you've already begun something powerful. But let's talk about the long game. How do we actually change that inner voice? The one that's been there for years, defaults to you're not good enough. The one that always finds the flaw. Because let's be real, self-compassion isn't a light switch. It's a practice, a relationship, a re-education. And it starts quite literally with one word at a time. Okay, here's some science. Every time you think a thought, it creates a neural pathway. The more often you repeat it, the stronger the pathway comes. That means I'm such a failure becomes a well-worn road. I never get it right becomes your autopilot route. But remember, the brain is plastic. It can change. You can build new roads starting with tiny word shifts. It doesn't mean you're lying to yourself. That doesn't mean you're lying to yourself. It means reframing with honesty and kindness. At first, your inner critic will shout over these new words. That's okay. You're not going to win the debate. You're building a new voice, brick by brick. Every time you choose a gentler phrase, you're rewiring something deep inside you. And over time, that voice becomes more familiar, more trustworthy, more yours. Here's a sentence I would like you to try and finish every day, even just in your mind. Even though blank, I am still worthy of love and care. Some examples. Even though I messed up in the meeting, I'm still worthy of love and care. Or even though I'm anxious and overwhelmed, I'm still worthy of love and care. Because remember, you are still worthy, you are still lovable, and you are still enough. Give that a go. So, as we come to the end of this week's episode, as we've wandered through this conversation about that critical voice, that inner judgment, and that constant feeling of not enough, maybe for the first time you've started to see that it is not your truth. It is a habit, a pattern, a survival strategy, and it's one you do not have to keep. Because the truth is, you are allowed to be kind to yourself. Not when you're perfect, not once you've fixed everything, but right now, in all the mess, in all the fear, and in the learning. You're allowed to speak softly to yourself and still be strong. You're allowed to hold yourself and still move forward. And you're allowed to change the voice in your head, one breath and word at a time. Now let's have a grounding pause here for a moment. Wherever you are right now, physically, mentally, or emotionally, just stop for a breath. Breathe in through your nose and hold it. Out through your mouth. And do that again. Now feel your feet on the floor. Notice the support beneath you. Let this moment be enough. And remember, Even when that voice comes back tomorrow or even next week or in the middle of the night, you'll have something new to meet it with. Kindness, curiosity, and the quiet knowing that you are not alone in doing this. Now, this was a shorter episode this week, but it's a really important one. I really look forward to hearing in the comments of how you get on with your inner voice, if you feel comfortable sharing. In the next episode of Pocket Wellbeing Friend, we'll talk about people pleasing, the boundaries, identity, and how to stop living your life to avoid upsetting somebody else. It's big, brave territory, I know, but I hope you can join me. Until then, take care and remember, you're doing better than you think.